Welcome back to Let's Hustle Homes with Hazel. I'm your host, Hazel Shakur, and together we're going to learn, execute, thrive, and succeed. One house, one dream at a time. Today, I am actually coming to you live from Mix and Mingle Coffee Lounge here in Clinton, Maryland. One of my favorite places to work, hang out, have a little bit of lunch, have a little coffee. So if you haven't been here before, please do come by. It's owned by three amazing women. It's a small minority business, and we want to definitely support them as much as we can so that they can thrive along with us. Today is special because I have with me my go-to guy. The guy that's most important in any transaction I do, because interestingly enough, it's the guy with the money that's most important. I am a diva, so I think I'm pretty important to most transactions, but the truth of the matter is, if Neil doesn't come through with a bag of money, then we are not closing. Neil is with Bay Equity, our sister company at Redfin, and he has made my life a lot easier and has really come in clutch, as they say. He's the guy I usually call first, and then if my clients decide that they want to use a different lender, he's usually the guy who has to come and clean the mess up that that other lender has made. So he'll tell you a little bit more about himself, but I wanted to make sure that we welcome Neil and learn from Neil because I know I've learned a lot from him myself. So Neil, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Hazel. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. Okay, let's start with how is it that you are my go-to lender at Bay Equity? Like, what was your journey to becoming a top-notch? I think you're number two, sometimes number one at Bay Equity
Yeah.
for the entire country, y'all. So he's pretty amazing. We actually stole him from a different lending institution because we all loved him so much. And when we started our own uh, uh, lending organization for Redfin, we knew we couldn't do it without Neil. And so, Neil, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey into real estate.
Sure. So I started in the industry about 22 years ago. I started with a broker. Didn't have any background or knowledge of mortgages, and slowly I grew my business and built a great reputation. And then went from a couple different lenders. Luckily, ended up with Bay Equity and Redfin. So really appreciate everything that you do for me.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, so, the question that's always on everyone's mind, and I'm probably going to always start with this question on every podcast
hmm
episode, which is, how's the market, Neil?
Yeah.
From a loan officer
Yeah.
perspective, tell us about the market.
Rates have been bouncing around a lot lately, but have been stabilizing compared to the roller coaster that we saw last year. So right now we're seeing some home buyers are adjusting their expectations, and the savvy buyers are jumping on a great opportunity when it comes on the market. So the very important to be prepared.
Prepared and to keep
Yeah.
your eye on the market
Yes.
and see. And I think that's what you're really good at, Neil, because I feel like you keep our clients so well informed. You reach out to them when the market is or the interest rate is at its lowest, and so at its
Yes.
best for clients. So right now it's a little bit more stable than last year. It sounds like.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Um, Tell me this because I say this all the time.
hmm
I say it as a real estate agent, but as a loan officer, perhaps hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, might be good. They say to date the rate and marry the house. What does
Yes.
that mean?
Yes. It basically means, rates are going to go up and down, but over the course of the last 100 years, you'll see that they're on a downward trend. So you can't time the market, but you can't let a house opportunity pass by because that is the best investment that you're going to make probably in your lifetime.
And that's something that we always talk about with, it's particularly first-time home buyers. Like,
hmm
what is the benefit of owning a home?
Yeah.
Is something I spend a lot of time discussing. And let's talk a little bit about first-time home buyers
Yes.
actually, because this is, these statements that we're making, we're usually telling and talking to a first-time home buyer.
Yes.
What's your best advice for a first-time home buyer who's figuring out how much
Yeah.
home he can afford? What interest rates mean, what
Yeah.
equity means. What's your best advice?
Yes, that's a great question. Don't just shop for the rate. Look at the full picture.
Okay.
Compare the APR to the interest rate. What are the lender fees? What are the total closing costs? The lender, are they going to be available on the weekends when you're likely touring properties, or are they in 9 to 5?
Yep.
So, that's very important. Have your credit in the best possible shape. Try not to make any big purchases before or during the process,
Yep.
like a car,
Yep.
and try not to move money around because that can really throw things off when it goes into underwriting.
Yep. Oh, let's talk about the underwriter
Yeah.
and his role in this whole thing, because we talk about him kind of in hushed tones
Yes.
because he's the person we have to please.
hmm
What is an underwriter, and what is the underwriting process?
Sure. So the underwriter basically is going to review and be the deciding factor of getting your loan approved. They're going to take a look at your credit, your total debt to income ratios, and your funds for closing, which all have to be verified beforehand. So you can't, come to the table with a bag of cash.
Well, how about that you just took out from under your mattress?
Right. No mattress money, we
Yeah.
call it.
Yeah, and for those real estate agents out there who are just starting out or been in the business a while, aligning yourself with a really good loan officer is going to make a difference of being somewhat successful or very successful. Because the one thing I will tell you is, again, it's very dependent on how the loan officer treats your client, explains things, helps them go through the entire process. And if you are not aligned with a good lender, you can make or break you, quite frankly. And that's the best advice I have for a lot of new agents is make sure that you find someone who's able to explain things to you in layman's terms, explain things to your client in layman's terms, and really help your client get the best loan that they can get and get through this underwriting process. Because one of the things that I say all the time, it's the loan officer who packages your loan in such a way that allows the underwriter to say, okay, this looks pretty clean. What are some of the things that when you're looking at someone's loan application that you tell them, okay, here's a few things that we need to kind of address and clean up before we send it to the underwriting? Give us some examples of some of those things.
Um, it could be just certain deposits that some buyers may throw in ten or $20,000 from an unverifiable source, meaning that we can't track that money to their payroll or if it's not a gift from relative. So we then need to figure out where the down payment funds are coming from. And then we just need to focus on the debt to income ratios to make sure all of the numbers work with the new housing payment, that they would still qualify for the new loan.
Because part of the loan process for the underwriter is to figure out if you can manage this loan, if you can manage this mortgage with everything else you have going on in your life. So you talk about debt to income ratio.
Yes.
What's that? Remind
So
me.
basically, all of your current debts that are reporting on your credit report, plus any possible child support or alimony that you would pay, in addition to your mortgage payment. So typically, we want that to be under 50% of your total gross monthly income.
Okay. And so that's really good advice for a first-time home buyer. These are things as a real estate agent you need to be aware of because a lot of times you start the conversation, um, but the key is to say, I can give you a little bit of information, but what you really need to do is talk to my go-to lender so that he can really inform you and give you all the advice you need in order to make a good decision about your mortgage payment, your interest rate, and buying your first home. Um, let's change gears for a minute.
Okay.
We talked a little bit earlier about the market. We are here in the DMV, and I believe you can help people in DC, Maryland, and Virginia.
Yes.
Tell us how the federal government layoffs. Have you seen any kind of change in the way people are moving and buying and selling real estate because of it?
I have not seen many being impacted so far. So I mean, I think we're still in a pretty busy market, and I haven't seen any setbacks from that yet.
That's, I think, that has been the most surprising thing
Yes.
this year. I always say that in the spring, my hair tends to be on fire because I'm usually very, very busy because this is when most people are out there looking to buy their first home or buy a home or sell their home. But it feels like it's business as usual right now.
Yeah, it really is.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yep.
it's a busy time.
Yeah. But the thing to keep in mind is that things can change very easily.
Yes.
I believe you were in business. You were, because you've been
In 2008.
2008
Yeah, yeah.
when the market crashed. And
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I was doing really well.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that we were in a bubble that was going to burst until
Yes.
it was almost too late for myself. And I might have given not so great advice to my clients.
Yeah.
So, how often should we be reaching out to you as a loan officer to say, how are things going? Because I feel
Yeah.
like you see it first.
Yeah.
One of the things that you tell me all the time is applications are up. And that
Yes.
usually means that people are filling out loan applications. And that's a good sign that they're interested in buying.
Yeah.
So how often should real estate agents reach out to you and have that how's the market going chat?
Yeah, I would say at least several times a year,
Okay.
just to keep updated on the current events and everything that's going on with the rates and just the
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And in fact, I'm going to give everyone a homework assignment. I want you to take out your phone. I want you to schedule 4 times a year. You're going to reach out to your loan officer, because if you're not selling real estate on a regular basis, you may not be aware of what's going on in the market. So my advice to you is to set time in your calendar to make sure that you have a coffee date with your loan officer to get the skinny, as they say, on what's going on in the market. Because if you're not aware of what's going on, you're not going to be able to give the best advice to your client. And that's really what they hire you to do, is give them good advice, give them resources to people who understand the market and the interest rates and what's going on in our industry really well. And I think that's what we bring together as a dynamic duo, is that I'm clearly very well aware of what's going on in the market. And I rely on you to keep me abreast of what's going on in the lending side of the market. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about home buyers. We've talked about the market. Let's talk about people who are looking to sell um, and buy. Because oftentimes I come to you because it's been a competitive market, meaning that a lot of times there are multiple offers on homes. And I've had to come to you to ask you, how can I make my client's loan or offer more attractive to the seller? And as a seller, what can someone come and ask you?
Sure.
Bridge loans, or sometimes you don't even need a bridge loan. You've been very clever in how you've been able to help us craft an offer that really gets them noticed and potentially ratified. So tell us a little bit about some of your tricks.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good one. So in a lot of cases, what we'll do is we'll structure the new loan with a smaller down payment, with maybe 5 or 10% down, if they don't really need a full 20% to get into the property. And so that way they can close on the home without having to sell.
Okay.
Make the offer a lot stronger. Once their home sells, whether it happens 30 days later, 60 days later, or 6 months later, they can then take the proceeds from the sale and apply that towards the new principal amount, dropping their mortgage payment. So it's called a recast.
A recast. Okay.
Yes.
So, and you've done that successfully for a few of our clients. So that's great. You guys, you cannot know everything. So it's really important that you know how to ask the right questions, or at least state the issues. So I'll come to Neil with a problem, and it's usually frantically at night or first thing in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm sending him a text saying, sorry, not sorry for this early morning text. Here's a situation my client has run into. Like recently, I called you because apparently, I don't know, and we're still investigating it. People who have deferred loans for their children or for themselves, student loans, it's showing up now on their credit as late payments. Now, we don't know. This is all breaking news the past 48 hours. In fact, someone we met with here at the coffee shop, again, shout out to Mix and Mingle here in Clinton, and they said that it happened to them. So now we really need to dig in and figure out how this is impacting our clients. So again, there's probably no question that's stupid or that Neil won't answer for me. And if you don't have that kind of relationship with your lender, your loan officer, then you need to kick that person to the curb and find someone. And I'll make sure to include Neil's contact information in case you want to reach out to Neil and and learn how he could be one of the best resources you have at your disposal when you're helping your clients buy and sell real estate. So we have a way to help sellers who are buying and selling at the same time.
Hmm.
How about refinances? What's good advice on people who are like looking? Some people won't
Yeah.
let go if they were lucky
Yeah.
enough to get that two
Yeah.
point seven five
Yeah.
percent, 3% interest rate. They're not
Yeah.
letting it go, and that's the best advice probably.
Absolutely.
But if
Yeah.
they're in
Hang on to
the
that.
hang on to that. But if they've bought in the past couple of years and they're sitting at a 7.5,
Yeah.
6.5% interest rate, how often should they be reaching out to you, or what can they do to make sure they're at the ready when it's time to
Yeah.
refinance?
Sure. So we actually do reach out to all of our previous clients,
Mhm.
but if you're not one of our clients, I would recommend just to check in with your lender periodically, I'd say a few times a year as well,
Yep.
because even a half a percent can make a difference. You just have to figure out what the break point is with your closing costs and how much you're saving every month, if it's worth
Yeah, so
the refinance.
there's the right math for it. Like,
Exactly. Yes.
you're going to save enough to make it worthwhile to
Yeah.
do the refinance.
Exactly.
And again, I often start the conversation and I say, okay, you need to talk to Neil because I can only tell you enough to get you on the right path. It's got to be a very deep conversation with Neil. Neil's going to know all of your math, particularly if you're an ongoing client with him. That's the other thing. If you don't have a lender who isn't reaching out to your clients every once in a while to check in, let them know that the interest rates have dropped and maybe it's time to have that refinance discussion, then you're working with the wrong loan officer. It's a full service, lifetime relationship you're going to build with your clients. And if you don't have someone who's taking that ride with you, then they're the wrong person. So definitely make sure that you have, when you're interviewing your loan officers, you have these questions at the ready. How are you going to communicate with my clients? Are you willing to work on weekends and at night? And do you have resources at your disposal, different loan products and products that people can use to help them through this journey of home buying and home selling? Which reminds me of another question because it just happened when
Yeah.
we were our table. A young lady came up and she had lots of questions. She asked about first-time home buying programs, and
Mhm.
interestingly enough, you pulled out flyers out of your
Yes.
bag and said, "Oh,
Yeah.
here's some information about that." What's the benefit of doing the extra legwork and homework? And do you bring that to attention to people when they sit down with you? How are you figuring out ways that you can help them source some monies and
Yeah.
funds to help them keep more money in their pocket
Yeah.
and to make a really good deal when they're buying their first home or even the subsequent homes?
Yeah, so we do review the client's situation to see if they would benefit from down payment assistance. So it's a great program if you truly need, the 3 to 5% help that they're offering. Some of the downsides can be that the funds have to be paid back when you refinance or sell the loan. So we kind of have to just wait to see if it's worth it for that particular client.
Yeah. Tell me this, is there a way, because before, a long time ago, you could buy a home with almost no money. Like,
Hmm.
is there any situation that is
Okay.
potentially possible?
Yes,
Obviously,
it's a
VA.
VA,
VA.
absolutely, yeah.
Uh-huh.
VA is a great loan,
Okay.
but if you don't qualify for VA, the down payment assistance can technically get you into a property with little to no money at all.
Okay, you heard it. You heard it first, or maybe sufficiently from a person who knows. Um, the thing that you have to do with your buyers, especially first time home buyers, is you have to be their advisor, you have to be their cheerleader. And oftentimes, I've seen agents do this when someone says, "Well, I don't have any money saved up." They kind of kick them to the curb and say, "Call me later when your credit's better or when you've got money in the bank." But that's not the way you build a relationship with someone. There are many people in my career that I've helped when they came to me and had bad credit and had no money, and I give them advice. I turn them over to a good loan officer, and then 6 months later, they come and buy their first house. A few years later, after that, they buy their second house. So just know that this is meant to be a long time journey that you're taking with your clients. I have clients who are now referring their grandchildren to me. And it's because I helped them years ago when I first started out in real estate. So just know that if you don't have the answers and you don't know if someone can qualify for a first time home buyer program, you need to turn them over to a trusted loan officer so that they can dig in and ask all the right questions and get them on the path to home ownership. because that's your job. Actually, it's to help them. Um, okay, is there anything else that you have found? Top three advice
Yeah.
tips
Yeah.
for someone looking to buy a home, whether it's
Yeah.
their first time home or you're buying their second home. What are the things that you want them to keep in mind?
Yeah, it's not, yeah, that's a great question. It's not always about the rate. You're buying a house to build equity.
Yeah.
You're buying a house to build equity, and it's a future investment.
So that
So that's
first
huge.
step, just make sure that you're buying a home for the right reason.
Hmm.
And you're looking at it as a long-term investment in yourself. I mean, you obviously need shelter, but also
Hmm.
you build equity. Equity is that thing that grows. It makes your house a piggy bank, essentially.
Yeah.
And when you're working with people, you have to remind them that we're looking at you in a more holistic manner. It's not just, okay, I need a roof over my head, but then, are you going to be able to build equity and to, kind of build wealth through home ownership?
Yeah.
Those are things that people need to be thinking about. And I love the fact that you're
Yeah.
always kind of couching it that way
Yeah.
with people who are coming to you. So that's great advice. Look at it as a long-term investment. What's another piece of advice? Don't buy a car while
Yeah.
you're in the process of buying a
Yes.
home. Is that
Yes.
is
Yeah.
that
Please don't buy a Mercedes a day before you're supposed to close.
exactly, because things can really blow up.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Abs-
crazy that we have to give that advice,
Yeah.
but they should hear it from you, real
Yeah.
estate professional, as well as the loan officer. Because strangely enough, that has happened to me, particularly before I started getting to the habit of saying during the home buying consult strategy session with my clients, try not to do any major expensive purchases, and talk to your
Mhm.
lender about how to present the most attractive loan package to the underwriter,
Mhm.
and also how to get the best interest rate. And in fact,
Yeah.
talk to us about maybe that's the third piece of advice,
Yes, that.
is how to set yourself up to get the lowest interest rate, because the lower the interest rate,
Yeah.
the lower your mortgage payment is going to be. And what are
Yes.
some things that impact that? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously the credit
Credit.
score.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you definitely want to have your credit in a tip-top shape.
Mhm.
You want to make sure that your credit card balances are paid below 50%
Mhm.
of the limits.
Okay.
That can really boost your scores. Those are going to be the key points. And one other thing I just remembered: please contact your lender before switching jobs during the process.
That's happened to me too.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, and why is that, Neil? Explain.
Well, because when your income changes, it could impact your qualifying
Okay.
for the loan. And then I've seen clients also switch from a W-2 to a 1099 during the process as well, which then technically makes them self-employed.
Yep. Well,
So,
and in fact, I'm laughing, but now I remember
yeah.
at the beginning of the year, there
Mm-hmm.
was $1 million home that my
Yep.
clients had built,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And she switched jobs, same
Mm-hmm.
industry,
Yep.
and then the lender kicked her to the curb.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, that's why I tell you, a good lender is worth their weight in gold. Neil was able to come in, save the day within 10 days. And that was
Yeah.
huge. And so they were able to
Thank you.
move into their dream home. And actually, they actually got a better deal with you than they did with the lender
Yeah.
for the builder. In fact, I always recommend to people when they're doing new construction, get the quote, the estimate from the builder's lender, and then get another one from Neil. Because sometimes, believe it or not, although they're dangling that closing help in front of you, sometimes that closing help is not worth it in the long run because your mortgage is higher and you have to bring more money to the table. Um, so, I mean, honestly, again, you don't have to know all of this. You just need to align yourself with the right loan officer who knows all of this and who can really help your client out. So, top three tips again is, just understand why you're buying a home and make sure you understand, your clients understand that is the equity that you're building, the piggy bank that the home is becoming is part of the big picture when you're buying a home, in addition to obviously having shelter. The second thing is don't make crazy big purchases or do anything to impact your credit and your ability to buy a home while you're in the middle of the process. And then, thirdly, also just make sure that you are doing things to keep your credit score high so that you can get the best interest rate. And if you don't know what those things are, have a conversation with your loan officer because what I like to do is say, go talk to Neil. He's going to take a look at what he's working with, what you're working with, and then he's going to tell you how to get from point A to point B. It may take a while, but that's okay because as with most wonderful things is that time heals all wounds. So even if your credit or your client's credit isn't good right now, it doesn't mean that Neil can't give you good advice on how to improve it. So in the long run, you're able to buy your first home.
Absolutely.
Okay. So let's talk directly to a real estate agent.
Okay.
Okay. So if you had to give advice to the real estate agent, we've been talking about helping the real estate agent who's watching this podcast help their clients, but tell us how and what advice you would give a real estate agent on how to work with a loan officer and how to make the journey for the buyer and the seller more seamless and less stressful. Like what advice do you have?
Sure, yeah, I would just make sure that they have good communication, that the lender has availability, at nights and weekends, and has time to actually make a phone call to their clients to go over all of their options. And it's not just via text or email. So I think those are the key points there.
Good communication.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, oftentimes when I'm walking through a home with a buyer, I will call Neil, and Neil sees my phone number, and he will actually pick up. So it makes me look like a superhero because Neil is picking up the phone call, and I do a warm handoff even while we're walking through the house. And if you don't have that kind of relationship with your loan officer where they don't pick up the call when they see it's you calling, then you need to maybe get a new loan officer. So just open lines of communication, making sure that they're working with someone who gives their business top attention.
Yes.
I think is the key to having a successful relationship with between a loan officer and an agent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you say that?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, one more thing, and the final thing is, because I feel like I know a lot, but there's probably some time in the past, Neil, and you can be very honest with me,
Okay.
where Hazel has come to you and asked something or did something, you're like, why do you have a real estate license, Hazel? How do you not know this? Tell me the truth.
I have not had that happen.
You haven't?
I have not.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because 21 years in, I finally
Yes.
have learned a lot.
Yes.
So that's good to know.
Yeah,
So I get
yeah.
A rating
I believe you're the best of the best.
I love that. Okay. Everyone else who thinks Neil is their real estate bestie, you heard it first. I am actually the best of the best, and I'm his favorite. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. You have to think about it because I'm sure his phone's going to ring off. So like, I thought I was your
I'm turning
favorite.
my phone off now.
Okay, well, there you have it. I hope that you have found this session and episode with Neil informative, and I hope that you are rethinking your relationship. If it isn't what obviously Neil and I have, then you need to find yourself a new loan officer because they make the difference between doing great work and closing a lot of deals to having a lot of missteps and heartache, not only for yourself, but more importantly for your clients. So again, this is probably one of the most important relationships you're going to have in real estate, and you want to make sure that you're aligning yourself with the best and people who, even when you're starting out, the one thing I will say about Neil is even though for a very long time I did a lot more listings than buyers, the minute I had a buyer, he gave me his undivided attention. So although I wasn't representing a lot of business for him for a very long time, I never felt like he thought that I was not worthy of his attention and support. So again, make sure that this very important relationship with your loan officer is top notch and that you can really rely on them to give you amazing service and give your clients amazing service. So that ends this episode. Thank you for joining me on Let's Hustle Homes with Hazel. And again, together I want us to learn, execute, thrive, and succeed.